Alright, today what we're going to show you is your very first step in doing the cutting board project or the plaque project or the cribbage board project. They're all done the exact same way that we're going to show you. Some of your shapes and sizes might be different, but they're all going to be done the same way. Now I'm going to demonstrate the maximum allowance, 12 by 17. That's the maximum you can have as far as wood consumption. If you go over that, you will have to inform the teacher and have a discussion with the teacher. Now, the first step is this. What you're going to do is you're going to take your thumbnails, you're going to take your direction sheet, and there's two spots on the direction sheet that ask for measurements. Now, remember, when we do lengths and widths on rough sizes, we have to add 1 inch. I look at my thumbnails, I do the one I want. This is 12 by 17, so on the paper, remember, add the inch, so I need a total of 13 by 18. So the first step says rough cut lengths. So now, remember your safety glasses, those have to be on. Now, we're going to use the upcut saw for this one, but you could also use the miter saw if you choose to. Now, the end of the board, remember, the ends of the boards are chainsaw cut or machine cut. They're never straight, and sometimes they have cracks. So what you want to do is you got to look your board over. Now, here is a bad defect for a cutting board. This would be a good defect for anything else, but a bad defect for a cutting board because it has holes in the board, and you don't want the juices going in there, so you need a clean board without cracks in it. Alright? So now, I look at my board, it all looks really nice, everything is good on it. I would cut the defects out if I needed to. Now, I am going to cut off the end of the board so I have a nice clean cut. Remember, don't overcut, you're just wasting wood. Now we turn the power on. We hit start, and we cut down. I'm going to shut that saw off just for a second so you can hear me. Now remember, my rough cut is 18 inches long. So what I'm going to do is I can put a mark on this at 18. We're using a miter saw, but on the upcut saw, we have a much more convenient way of doing it. We push the board through, make sure the scraps are out. I can push the board through. I can set it right on the gauge, right on the scale to 18. It'll cut slightly a little bit longer, but that's fine. So we're going to start it up. I have one board cut. Now remember, I need 13 inches. I need 13 inches. This board is about 8 inches. So that is pretty good. Now I don't need to cut another board off from this one. Remember, wood is expensive. Find a narrower board so you don't waste all that extra wood. So I already pre-picked out a board that will meet those needs. So the first thing I want to do once again is trim off that end because a lot of the ends are bad. I'm going to go make sure you clean up your scraps so nobody else trips off it. Throw it in a box. And now I take my board, my two boards that I've cut, set them together, and now I'm going to measure them, and now I have the minimum rough of 13. Now the board's going to get consumed in these next processes, so I pre-cut a board that's a little bit narrower, just in case I need it. You don't need to do that. Now, what we're going to do on the next step, it says rip off any defects in your boards that are 6 inches or wider. We're going to rip them in half. So we need to go to a table saw. the table saw, all your boards stay here. This is where we're cutting, nothing else should be in that place. So now I look at my boards, I look for defects. I look at this board, I don't see any defects in it. Defect would be like a knot or something like that. That one's good. This one's good, so I don't have to rip off any defects. But now, remember the directions, if your board is wider than 6, you need to rip it in half. So my board's around 8, so I set it for around 4. And now I have it, I'm gonna rip this board in half. When doing a cutting board, you want multi-pieces. If I had a cutting board out of this board, it would warp. So that's why we're gonna deconstruct the boards and reconstruct them in a proper format. So I'm gonna take this off. If you noticed, I used the push stick, all right, and I push the boards completely off the saw. Do not leave them hanging up. Now I'm going to take my boards and I'm going to put them together. Do I still have 13 at this point? You need to double check, because if you're cutting defects, you're going to lose some of the wood. So I look at that, I still have 13 at this point. There's my extra board I'm going to bring along just in case. Now I want to show you right now, keep this number in mind. I have 13 inches and 3/8. Now the next step, step 3 says joint all of your edges. So now I'm going to come over to the jointer. First thing I want to do is walk up to the jointer, make sure everything's clear. This knob I touch only. I want to make sure I just close the gap up. There's no set measurement on that. Just close the gap up. So now I'm going to grab my board, make sure I understand I have a push stick here, so I know where I'm going to, so I can use it correctly. Remember, fingers up. A lot, that's telling you that you got some bad grain. So all you gotta do is flip the board around, slow down. You gotta do both edges. How many times do you push the board through there? Whatever it takes to get a nice, flat, square edge. Got to maintain our 13 inches. So now, remember it was 13 3/8 before I got to the jointer. So now I'm going to go right here. After those few passes, I am now down to 12 and a half. What do I need? 13. This is why I grabbed the extra board, knowing that a lot of wood gets consumed in the cutting process. So you got to double check that. 13. Remember, we don't want much more than that because it is wood waste and wood does cost money. So now the next step is we are going to go and glue the boards up. So we're going to go to the glue table. Now you got to do a little bit of prep work on these. These have glue on them. It's part of the process. So first thing we want to do when we grab a clamp, this is loose. So what we want to do is tighten this up. If you can see, the thread's already pushed out. So what I want to do, I want to back those way away. And now I want to clean this bar up. How do we do that? We suppress this right here, push, and go back and forth there several times, and that cleans the glue up. Double check this one. We gotta tighten, back it up. This one's got a little bit extra glue on it, so it might take me this a second longer. There, now it's cleaned up. Now what I'm going to do is set these up. You want to make sure that you have clamps prior to gluing. Set my boards on here. Make sure that they're open far enough to receive the boards that you want to glue up. Now the next step is look at these boards, put them in the order in which you think appeals to your eye. I'm going to take, this is a whiter board, this is brown one. I like the white one right there. I like how that looks. Now, I have an idea of how at least one side's going to look. Now I got to come over here, I need to watch the grain pattern. Now, the board needs, the grain pattern needs to go down, it needs to go up, it needs to go down. Why is that? Remember I said we were deconstructing the board, now I'm going to construct it in a proper manner. So these forces right here will fight each other from wanting to warp. That is critical on this. So what I like to do is you can look on the ends of the board, see the grain pattern. Some of them are pretty straight cut and there isn't a lot of fluctuation. That one. This one goes like this. And this one's kind of all over the place, but it kind of does this. Now, remember the roller coaster. I want this one this way. This one's wrong, so I'm going to have to make a choice to go down, down, up. This one was kind of straightforward, kind of a neutral board. And this one will go down. So now we're in the proper placement. Now we're going to use glue. Very important that you use the right glue. This glue right here, we have cutting board, we have written all over this. This is for waterproof glue. It means you can wash the board, it won't come apart. This is common glue. If you're going to make a project like the deer horn plaque or cribbage board, you can use just regular glue, but every cutting board needs to use this style of glue. Now in this can is a popsicle stick that can assist you in doing that. So we have our grain patterns all set up. I know exactly what I want. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on here. Of course, the glue bottle is jammed up. That happens, glue dries. We're going to put glue here on this joint. We're going to take our popsicle stick now. You need a thin coat of glue. I can tell right now I got too much glue on, so instead of wasting it, going to transfer it to the next edge. Every single bit of this board needs to have glue on it. right? Not just little bits and pieces, it all needs glue. Now, how does glue work? Two boards like this. The glue soaks in, it goes into the pores of the wood, so if I only put glue on one side, it doesn't glue very well. I want glue to be wet on both edges so the glue intermixes in the pores. This is a really important process that you need to follow because if you don't glue up right, it ain't gonna stay together right. Most of you are used to only gluing one surface. So now I'm gonna move it, I'm gonna glue every surface. You can also just use your fingers too, and there's a lot of times that I just use my finger, I think it's easier. And glue just washes off. Make sure you don't get it on your clothes though. Glue does not come out of clothes very well. See how I'm using my finger now? I think it's a lot easier. I have more control over the glue. Very important that you get all those edges. Now, don't glue the ends of the board, or excuse me, the outer edges of the boards, because you don't want glue there. It's just going to create, if you make that mistake, it's going to create a lot of work. Now, I'm ready to glue up. So what I want to do is just pick one side, because your boards may not be the exact length, which is fine. I want to make sure I maintain my pattern that I have. I'm going to squeeze this in, snap it in. Snap it in. We're going to put a little tension right here, a little tension on this side. We want a flat edge, so feel with your finger on the faces right here. I don't care about up here. I just want one really good flat face. That's why I took the hammer and pounded on it, to make sure that I maintain that. Trust me, that'll save you a ton of work. Now, glue's gonna bead up in here, and just leave that alone. So then what you wanna do is put your name on this, and I'll just put 1A, just for example. We're gonna take this board, lean it on here, and it needs to sit for 24 hours. If you have any questions on that, feel free to ask your teacher.